The warning klaxons screamed across Bloodstone Ridge just after dawn. Taram burst from his dwelling, his black fur bristling as he reached for the blade at his hip. Around him, other Vexra warriors emerged from their homes, their amber eyes wide with alarm. The sound of the klaxons meant only one thing: outsiders approached their world. Taram bounded toward the communication tower on his powerful hind legs, his claws digging into the red soil with each stride. His daughter Rena was already there, her young face pressed against the viewing screen. When she saw him, she stepped back quickly, her ears flattening against her skull. "Father, a ship is coming? They say they need emergency repairs." Taram pushed past her and stared at the screen. His blood ran cold. The vessel's identification markers were unmistakable, human. "No," he growled, his voice rumbling deep in his chest. "Not them." "Never them?" Within minutes, the clan elders gathered in the great hall. Gorin, the oldest among them, sat with his scarred hands folded across his lap. Beside him, 3 other elders whispered urgently to one another. Taram stood before them, his massive frame tense with barely controlled fury. "They ask for sanctuary," one elder said, her voice trembling. "Their ship's engines are failing. They will crash if we do not allow them to land." "Then let them crash far from here," Taram snarled. "Let them fall into the wastelands where their curse cannot touch us." Gorin raised one weathered hand. The hall fell silent. "You know our laws, Taram. We cannot refuse emergency sanctuary. To do so would stain our honor for generations." "Honor?" Taram's voice rose to a roar. "What honor is there in welcoming the soft deaths to our home? Have you forgotten the stories? Wherever humans go, disaster follows, plagues, equipment failures, entire clans vanishing without trace." "I have not forgotten," Gorin said quietly. "But I also remember that we are Vexra. We do not hide from our laws when they become inconvenient." The debate raged for nearly an hour. In the end, honor won, as Gorin had known it would. The human ship would be permitted to land, but under strict conditions. The human would be confined to the western quarantine zone, far from the clan's dwellings. Armed warriors would guard the perimeter at all times. No Vexra would approach within speaking distance. And the moment the ship was repaired, the human would leave. Taram watched the ship descend through the rust-colored sky, his jaw clenched so tight his fangs ached. The vessel was small, designed for a crew of 1 or 2 at most. It landed with a hiss of steam and settling metal in the designated zone. Surrounded immediately by a circle of warriors with weapons drawn, the hatch opened. A figure emerged, small and pale and impossibly fragile-looking. Taram had seen humans before, long ago, but the sight still disturbed him. No fur, no claws, no fangs. Just soft skin that looked like it would tear at the slightest touch. This one was female, he thought, though it was difficult to tell with humans. She wore a simple gray suit and carried no visible weapons. The human raised her hands slowly, palms forward. "Thank you," she called out in accented but understandable Vexra language. "My name is Hyan. I'm grateful for your hospitality." None of the warriors responded. They simply stared at her with hostile amber eyes, their tails lashing behind them. Hyan lowered her hands slowly. "I understand you're wary. I won't approach your settlement. I just need a few days to repair my engine core. Then I'll leave." Still silence. Taram stepped forward, his shadow falling across the small human. She looked up at him, and he saw no fear in her eyes, only sadness. That disturbed him more than fear would have. "You will stay within this zone," he said, his voice hard. "You will not approach our dwellings. You will not speak to our young. When your repairs are complete, you will leave immediately." "These are not requests." Hyan nodded. "I understand. Thank you for allowing me to land safely." Taram turned and walked away, gesturing for the warriors to maintain their positions. He did not look back at the human, though he could feel her gaze on his back. That night, Taram could not sleep. He stood on the balcony of his dwelling, staring out at the quarantine zone, where a single small light glowed from the human ship. His brother's face haunted his memory. Strong, proud, laughing. and then gone on a mining expedition that a human crew had said was dangerous. His brother had not believed them, thought it was human cowardice or trickery. The mine had collapsed, killing everyone inside. Taram had blamed the humans for decades. They had known. They must have caused it somehow, he had told himself. But deep in his heart, in a place he refused to examine, doubt had begun to grow. Father? He turned to find Rena standing in the doorway, her young face troubled. You should be sleeping, he said. So should you. She moved to stand beside him, following his gaze to the distant light. Is it true what they say about humans? That they bring death wherever they go? Yes, Taram said, but his voice lacked conviction. She doesn't look very dangerous. The most dangerous things rarely do. Rena was quiet for a long moment. Goran says the old stories might not tell the whole truth. Goran is old and forgets what he once knew. But after Rena returned to her sleeping chamber, Taram remained on the balcony watching that single light. He thought about his brother, about the mine, about the human crew that had warned them. He thought about honor and fear and the weight of old hatred. 3 days passed. The human worked on her ship, her movements visible through the watching scopes of the guards. She ate alone, slept alone, spoke to no one. Occasionally she would look toward the settlement, and the guards reported that her expression seemed lonely. On the third day, Han approached the perimeter, stopping well short of the boundary markers. She held up a datapad, gesturing with it. The guards growled warnings, but she did not retreat. Please, she called out. I need to show you something. Your atmospheric readings. There's something wrong with your planet's magnetosphere. The guards did not respond. One ran to fetch Taram. When Taram arrived, Han tried again. I'm a xenobiologist, but I know how to read planetary data. Your magnetosphere is weakening in this region. There's a solar flare building. If it hits while the field is weak, the radiation levels will be lethal. Human tricks, Taram growled. You seek to frighten us, so we will depend on your technology. I know you're kind. Please, just look at the data. Enough! Taram's roar echoed across the zone. Finish your repairs and leave. We want nothing from you. Hyan's shoulders slumped. She nodded slowly and returned to her ship. That night, Taram stood on his balcony again, watching the light. The sky above seemed normal, stars bright and clear. But somewhere in his chest, unease stirred. What if the human was telling the truth? What if danger was coming and he was too proud to see it? He pushed the thought away and went inside. Humans brought only misfortune. That was the truth he knew. That was the truth he had to believe. 5 days had passed since Hyan landed at Bloodstone Ridge. She sat inside her ship, staring at the screen that showed her engine repair progress. 92% complete. By tomorrow evening, she would be able to leave this unwelcoming world behind. The thought should have brought relief, but instead, she felt only sadness. She had spent her entire adult life studying alien species, learning their languages, documenting their cultures. The Vexra fascinated her. Their society was built on honor and family bonds that seemed unbreakable. They were fierce warriors, yes, but also devoted parents and loyal friends to one another. She had watched them through her ship's external cameras, seen how gently the massive warriors handled their cubs, how they sang together in the evenings, and they feared her. Not with the fear of something dangerous, but with the deep, superstitious dread of a curse they could not fight. Hyan pulled up her journal and began typing. She documented everything she had observed, their social structures, their language patterns, their building techniques. When human xenobiologists finally made proper contact with the Vexra, these notes would be invaluable. Someone would learn from them, even if she had failed. Outside, hidden among the rocks about 200 meters from the quarantine zone, 3 young Vexra cubs crouched in the shadows. Dane was the largest, his black fur still showing patches of the brown that marked adolescence. Beside him, Kara nervously groomed her whiskers, her tail twitching. Misu, the smallest, pressed close to his friends, his amber eyes wide. We should go back, Misu whispered. If the adults find us here, we will be punished. They are all busy with the territorial dispute, Dane said confidently. The Northern Clan is challenging our border markers again. Father said it would take all day to resolve. I still do not understand why we are here, Kara said. The human is dangerous. Everyone says so. Everyone says so, Dane repeated mockingly. But has anyone actually talked to it? Has anyone asked why it came here? We are told to fear, but not told why. There are stories, Misu said. Old stories about humans bringing death. Dane stood up on his hind legs, drawing himself to his full height, which was still not very impressive for a Vexra. I am not afraid of an old story. Look at it, it is tiny. It has no claws, no fangs, no fur. If it is so dangerous, why does it need guards to protect it from us? This logic was difficult to argue with. The three cubs had been watching the human for days, taking turns sneaking away from their lessons and chores. The human did not seem threatening. Mostly she just worked on her ship or sat reading from her glowing screens. Sometimes she would walk around the perimeter of her zone, looking at the plants and rocks, scanning them with small devices. I dare you to approach it, Kara said suddenly. Dane's ears perked up. What? I dare you. Walk up to the boundary and speak to it. Prove you are not afraid. Pride warred with caution in Dane's chest. He was not truly afraid, was he? But the stories were very old, very serious. Still, a dare was a dare. Among the Vexra, refusing a direct challenge was shameful. Fine, Dane said, trying to sound braver than he felt. I will do it. Come with me. The three cubs crept forward, their young hearts pounding. The guards were positioned on the far side of the zone, watching the settlement more than the human. The cubs reached the boundary markers. Ancient stones carved with their clan symbols. Hyon was outside her ship, kneeling beside a cluster of blue-green plants, scanning them with a handheld device. She seemed completely absorbed in her work. Dane cleared his throat, trying to make his voice sound deep and threatening. Human! Hyon's head snapped up. She saw the three cubs and her eyes widened. For a moment no one moved. Then, slowly, Hyon stood up, raising her hands in that strange, palm-forward gesture she had used when she first arrived. Hello, she said softly in their language. Please do not be afraid. I will not hurt you. We are not afraid. Dane declared, though his voice cracked slightly. We are warriors of the Bloodstone clan. A smile touched Hyon's face, small and sad. Of course. I can see that. You are very brave to come here. Dane puffed out his chest. Tell us why you came to our world, human. Tell us why your kind brings death. The smile faded from Hyon's face. She sat down slowly on the ground, crossing her legs in a way that made her seem smaller, less threatening. May I show you something? The cubs exchanged glances. Curiosity won? Show us, Dane said. Hyon pulled out her datapad and tapped the screen several times. She turned it so the cubs could see. On the screen was an image of a small creature, furry and four-legged, with pointed ears and a long tail. This is a cat, Hyon said. On my world, my people lived with these creatures for thousands of years. We worshipped them as gods once. We built monuments to them. They kept us company, protected our food stores from pests, made us feel less alone. It looks like us, Misu whispered, creeping forward despite himself. But small, and it walks on four legs. Yes, Hyon said. When I first saw images of your people, I thought of cats. I thought how beautiful you were. She swiped the screen, showing more images. Earth's great cities, oceans that stretch to the horizon, mountains covered in snow. Other alien worlds she had visited, each one strange and wonderful. The cubs were entranced. They crept closer, forgetting their fear entirely, pressing against the boundary markers to see better. Hyon showed them everything, narrating in her soft voice, answering their questions with patience and evident delight. Why do you study other worlds? Kara asked. Because every species has something unique to teach us, Hyon said. Every culture has beauty in it. I want to learn. I want to understand. But the stories say your kind brings death, Misu said, his voice small. Hyon's expression grew sad again. I know, I have read those stories. I think there is truth in them, but not the truth your people believe. Humans do not cause disasters. We predict them. We have technology that can detect danger before it arrives. But when we try to warn others, we are often not believed. And when disaster strikes, we are blamed. Is that why you tried to warn us about the sky? Dane asked. Yes, your world's magnetic field is weakening. A solar flare is building. When it hits, the radiation will be very dangerous. I wanted to help, but your chieftain thinks I am trying to trick you. The cubs were quiet, processing this. Finally, Rena's voice cut through the silence. What are you doing? The three cubs spun around, startled. Rena stood behind them, her face a mixture of anger and fear. She was older than them, nearly an adult and the chieftain's daughter. Her word carried weight. Rena? Dane stammered. We were just, I can see what you were doing, Rena said. But her eyes were on Hyun, studying the small human who still sat peacefully on the ground. The human has been showing you things. Pictures, Kara said quickly. Of her world. And others. Rena stepped forward, moving between the cubs and the boundary. She stared at Hyun for a long moment. You spoke of the sky. Of danger coming. Do you truly believe this? Hyun met her gaze steadily. Yes, I would not lie about something so serious. Let me show you the data. She held out the datapad. Rena hesitated, then stepped across the boundary marker. The cubs gasped. Rena ignored them, taking the datapad and studying the screens Hyun pulled up. Numbers and graphs filled the display, showing the magnetic field weakening, showing solar activity building. I do not understand all of this, Rena admitted. The simple version, Hyun said. Is that your planet's protective shield is breaking? When the sun releases its energy, nothing will stop the radiation from reaching the surface. Your underground shelters will not be deep enough. Your shielding technology is not strong enough. People will die. How long do we have? I cannot be certain. 2 days. Maybe 3. Rena looked at the data for a long time. Finally, she handed the datapad back. My father will not listen. He blames humans for my uncle's death. I know, Hyun said softly. I read about the mining accident. I'm sorry for your loss. Can your ship protect us? My ship's shields could protect a small area, but not your entire settlement, unless we work together to build something larger. Rena was quiet. Then she turned to the cubs. Go home. Tell no one you were here. I must think about this. The cubs nodded and scurried away. Rena lingered, looking at Hyun one last time. You are not what I expected. Neither are you, Hyun said with a small smile. Rena turned and walked back toward the settlement, her mind racing. Above them, the sky remained clear and beautiful. But danger was coming and time was running out. The sky began to change just before dawn. Hyun woke to her ship's alarm screaming warnings in her ears. She bolted upright, her heart racing, and stared at her screens in horror. The solar flare had arrived early. Much earlier than her models had predicted. Outside, the first colors were appearing on the horizon. But they were wrong. Instead of the soft orange and pink of a normal sunrise, violent streaks of green and crimson tore across the sky like wounds. The aurora was beautiful and terrible, twisting and writhing as charged particles slammed into the weakened magnetosphere, Hyun's radiation. Detector began clicking rapidly, its sound accelerating into a continuous shriek. The levels were already dangerous. Within minutes, they would be lethal. In the Bloodstone settlement, the emergency klaxons began their wailing cry. Taram burst from his dwelling, staring up at the burning sky in disbelief. All around him, Vexra emerged from their homes, their ears flat against their skulls, their eyes wide with primal fear. To the shelters! Taram roared. Everyone to the shelters now! Families began running toward the underground bunkers at the settlement center. Parents grabbed their cubs, warriors helped elders, everyone moving in controlled panic. The ancient shelters had protected them from storms and attacks for generations. They would be safe there. They had to be, but at the edge of the settlement, in the outer fields where young Vexra often played, 3 small figures were running the wrong way, Dane, Kara, and Misu had sneaked out before dawn to watch the sunrise together, a forbidden adventure they had planned for days. Now they were trapped on the far side of the settlement, too far from the shelters, with the sky itself turning against them. "Run!" Dane shouted, his young legs pumping as fast as they could carry him. "Run for the settlement!" But they were too slow, too far. The radiation levels spiked violently. The air itself seemed to shimmer with heat. Kara stumbled and fell, crying out in pain as her exposed skin began to redden. Misu tried to help her up, but his strength was failing too. At the settlement entrance, Rena saw them. Her scream cut through the chaos. "The cubs! Dane, Kara, Misu! They are trapped!" Taram spun around, his eyes finding the three small figures collapsed in the field. Three warriors immediately broke from the crowd, racing toward the cubs. They made it perhaps 50 meters before the radiation drove them back, their fur smoking, their bodies convulsing. They stumbled and fell, barely managing to crawl back toward shelter. "No!" Rena shrieked, trying to run toward the cubs herself. Taram grabbed her, holding her back with his massive strength even as she fought him. "You cannot. The radiation will kill you." "Then let me die with them," Rena sobbed. "They are children." In the quarantine zone, Hyun watched the scene unfold through her ship's cameras. She saw the three cubs collapsed in the field, their small bodies writhing. She saw the adults held back by invisible death. She saw the anguish on every Vexra face. Her ship's computer provided calm, logical analysis. The shelters were inadequate. The settlement's shields were failing. Casualties would be severe. The recommendation was clear: seal the ship, engage maximum shielding, wait out the storm. Hyun looked at her hands. They were shaking. She thought about her oath as a xenobiologist, the promise she had made to observe but not interfere. She thought about the Vexra-esque hatred of her kind, their refusal to even speak to her. She thought about 3 children dying, alone and afraid under a burning sky. Her hands stopped shaking. She knew what she had to do. Hyun ran to her ship's emergency locker and grabbed the portable shield emitter. It was heavy, designed to be mounted on a vehicle, not carried by a single person. She did not care. She activated her environmental suit's maximum protection settings, knowing it would buy her minutes at best in this radiation storm. Then she opened the hatch and stepped outside into hell. The heat hit her like a physical blow. Her suit's alerts immediately began screaming warnings. Radiation levels, lethal. Exposure time to severe injury, 90 seconds. Exposure time to death, 4 minutes. She ignored them all and started running. At the settlement entrance, Goran saw her first. The old Vexra's eyes widened. "The human," he whispered. "The human is running toward the cubs." Every eye turned to watch. The small figure in the bulky suit struggled across the field, carrying something large and metallic. She stumbled, fell, got up, kept moving. The radiation was tearing at her even through the suit's protection. They could see the fabric beginning to scorch. "She will die," Taram said, his voice hollow with shock. "Yes," Goran said quietly. "She will die to save our children." Hyun's lungs burned. Her skin felt like it was on fire. The suit's systems were failing, alarms shrieking in her ears so loud she wanted to scream. The cubs were just ahead, huddled together, barely conscious. So close. She had to reach them. Her legs gave out 20 meters from the cubs. She fell hard, the shield emitter clattering beside her. For a moment she could not move, could not breathe, could not think through the pain. Then she saw Misu's small face, his eyes closed, his breathing shallow. Hyun began to crawl. Meter by meter, dragging the emitter, dragging herself. Her suit was in tatters now, offering almost no protection. The radiation was cooking her from the inside out. She could taste blood in her mouth. Her vision was starting to blur. She reached the cubs. With hands that no longer felt like her own, she activated the shield emitter and positioned it above the 3 small bodies. The device hummed to life, creating a shimmering dome of protective energy. Inside the dome, the radiation levels dropped immediately to safe levels, but the dome was not large enough to cover Hyun too. She looked at the 3 cubs. their chests still rising and falling with breath, and she smiled. Then she positioned herself between them and the worst of the sky's fury, using her own body as additional shielding. The radiation slammed into her back like hammers. She closed her eyes and thought of Earth, of cats sleeping in sunbeams. Of all the beautiful things she had seen in her travels, she thought it was a good way to die. At the settlement entrance, Taram stood frozen, watching the small human sacrifice herself for children who were not her own. The soft death, the cursed ones. The species his people had feared for generations. And here she was, burning so that Vexra cubs might live. "I was wrong," he whispered. "By all the old gods, I was wrong." The solar flare raged for 8 hours. The Bloodstone clan huddled in their inadequate shelters, watching their equipment fail, feeling the heat seep through the walls. But they survived. The worst of the radiation passed over them. Drawn toward the poles by what remained of the magnetosphere, when the alarms finally fell silent, when the sky faded back to its normal orange hue, Taram was the first to emerge. He walked alone across the settlement toward the outer field, his feet heavy with dread and shame. The shield dome was still active, its power cell somehow still functioning. Inside, the 3 cubs lay unconscious but breathing, their vital signs stable. And sprawled across them, her body ravaged by burns, her breathing barely perceptible, was Hyun. Taram knelt beside the dome, staring at the human who had proven everything he believed to be a lie. Around him, other Vexra began to gather. Rena fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. The 3 cubs' parents arrived, seeing their children alive, seeing what it had cost. "Get her to the medical bay," Taram said, his voice rough. "Her ship has medical equipment." "The radiation is still dangerous," a warrior warned. "Whoever carries her will be exposed." Taram stood, his massive frame silhouetted against the morning sky. "Then I will carry her. I am chieftain. This is my burden to bear." He carefully deactivated the shield dome and lifted Hyun's broken body with a gentleness that surprised even himself. She was so light, so fragile. He had never understood how something so soft could be so strong. As he carried her back toward her ship, the entire clan parted before him, every warrior bowing their head in respect. The cubs woke slowly, confused and frightened. When they saw Hyun in Taram's arms, they began to cry. "Is she dead?" Misu asked, his voice small and broken. "No," Taram said, though he was not certain. "But she burns for you. Remember this. Remember what she gave." The Bloodstone clan watched their chieftain carry the human toward her ship, and in that moment, everything changed. The old stories died. A new legend was being born. Taram had never been inside a human ship before. The interior was cramped by Vexra standards, filled with smooth surfaces and glowing panels covered in symbols he could not read. He carried Hyun through the narrow corridors, following the signs that showed a medical symbol he recognized from universal standards. The medical bay was small but sophisticated. A cylindrical chamber dominated the center of the room, its transparent walls revealing a cushioned platform inside. Taram gently laid Hyun on the platform, trying not to look too closely at her injuries. Her skin was burned in patterns where the radiation had struck hardest. Some areas were raw and weeping. She did not wake when he moved her. A mechanical voice spoke in human language, then switched to Vexra. "Critical injuries detected. Beginning emergency treatment protocol. Estimated treatment time, 72 hours minimum. Survival probability, 42%. 42%? Less than half." Taram stared at the human's still face as the chamber sealed around her, filling with a pale blue mist. Machines began their work, too complex for him to understand. "I am sorry," he said quietly, though she could not hear him. "I should have listened." He walked out of the ship into the morning light. The entire clan waited outside, hundreds of faces turned toward him. Dane, Kara, and Misu sat at the front, wrapped in blankets, their parents holding them close. The cub's eyes were red from crying. "The human lives," Taram announced. "But her survival is uncertain. Her ship's machines are treating her. What do we do now?" asked one of the warriors. Taram looked at the faces of his people. He saw shame there, and guilt, and a desperate need for guidance. He thought about his brother, about the warnings he had refused to hear, about all the years he had carried hatred in his heart. Now, he said slowly, we keep vigil. We honor the one who shielded our young. But she is human, someone said, their voice uncertain. The soft deaths. The cursed ones. No, Goran's voice rang out. The old historian stepped forward, his aged body moving with dignity. I have studied the old stories all my life. I believed them as you all did, but I was wrong. We were all wrong. The crowd murmured in confusion. Goran continued, his voice growing stronger. The disasters that followed human contact were not caused by humans. They were natural events that humans predicted with their advanced technology. They tried to warn those they encountered, but they were not believed. And when disaster struck, they were blamed. We made them scapegoats for our own failures to heed their warnings. My brother, Taram said, his voice rough with emotion. The mine collapsed. The humans warned us it was unstable. They showed us their data, and I convinced my brother to ignore them. I called them cowards and liars. He died because of my pride. The confession hung in the air. Taram, the mighty chieftain of Bloodstone clan, admitting his terrible mistake before everyone. Rena stepped forward and took her father's hand, squeezing it gently. What do we do to make this right? She asked. Taram looked at his daughter, seeing the strength in her young face. We learn. We listen. And we honor the one who proved us wrong in the most profound way possible. Within an hour, the area around Hyan's ship began to transform. Warriors brought offerings and placed them at the ship's entrance. Precious stones from deep mines, weapons forged by master craftsmen, pelts from honorable hunts. One elderly female brought a carefully woven blanket, traditional medicine herbs tucked into its folds. Dane, Kara, and Nisu refused to leave. They sat outside the ship's entrance, keeping watch. When their parents tried to take them home to rest, they dug in their claws and would not move. She saved us, Dane said stubbornly. We stay until she wakes. Their parents looked at Taram. He nodded slowly. Let them stay. They understand honor better than many adults? Rena brought food and water for the cubs, sitting with them through the long day. Other young Vexra joined them, drawn by curiosity and the strange new story spreading through the settlement. By evening, nearly 20 cubs sat in a circle around the ship, some playing quiet games, others simply watching and waiting. Inside the medical chamber, Hyan drifted in darkness. The machines kept her body alive, repaired damage cell by cell, fought the radiation poisoning with chemicals and nanobots. Sometimes she surfaced close enough to consciousness to sense voices outside, but she could not make out words. She dreamed of fire and small frightened faces and the feeling of burning from the inside out. 3 days passed. The vigil grew rather than diminished. Adults began joining the cubs, sitting in quiet meditation outside the human ship. Warriors took turns standing honor guard at the entrance. The clan's best hunters brought their finest catches as offerings. Though they knew the human could not eat them yet, Goran spent hours in the settlement's archive, searching through old texts. On the 4th day, he called a gathering and shared what he had found. I have located 15 separate incidents of human contact with our people over the past 200 years, he said, his voice carrying across the crowd. In each case, disaster followed shortly after. In each case, we blame the humans. But in each case, records show the humans tried to warn us of danger. We did not listen. He pulled up an old holographic display showing data from a settlement 3 generations ago. Here, humans detected a volcanic eruption 3 days before it occurred. They urged evacuation. The clan chief called them doom speakers and refused. 200 Vexra died. The humans were blamed for bringing the curse. Another display. Here, humans warned of a disease spreading through livestock. They offered medicine. It was rejected as poison. The disease spread and half the herds died. The humans were blamed for bringing the plague. On and on, case after case. The pattern was clear and damning. The humans had been prophets of disaster, not its cause. and the Vexra had turned them into monsters rather than face their own stubborn pride. We have wronged them, Goran finished quietly. For generations we have wronged them. One human has now given everything to show us the truth. We must not let her sacrifice be meaningless. That night, Taram entered Hien's ship again, drawn by something he could not name. He stood before the medical chamber, watching the soft glow of machines at work. The human's face was less burned now, healing slowly under the chamber's care. But she remained unconscious, trapped in healing sleep. "Your daughter comes every day," he said to the sleeping human. "She speaks to you, tells you about our people, reads from our histories. She wishes to study the stars as you do." He paused, struggling with words that did not come easily. "I hated your kind for so long. I thought you were death itself wearing a false face. I was a fool. You showed me what true courage is. You showed me what it means to put others before yourself, even those who have shown you only cruelty." He reached out slowly, placing one massive clawed hand against the chamber's surface. "Wake up," he said softly. "Let me apologize to your face. Let me call you friend, if you will allow it. Let me show you that we can be better than we were." The machines hummed their quiet song. Hien did not stir. Taram stayed there for a long time before finally returning to his dwelling. But he came back the next day and the day after, sitting with his daughter as she read to the sleeping human. On the 7th day, Rena was reading from a text about Vexra history when she noticed movement inside the chamber. She stopped mid-sentence, her heart suddenly racing. "Father," she whispered. "Father, look." Hyen's eyes were open. The medical chamber's mist began to clear. Hyen blinked slowly, trying to focus. She saw a massive furred face pressed close to the transparent wall, amber eyes wide with hope. Behind it, a smaller face, younger, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You are awake," Rena breathed. "Oh, thank the old gods, you are awake." The chamber unsealed with a soft hiss. Hyen tried to sit up and immediately gasped in pain. Taram reached in with surprising gentleness, helping her lean back against the cushions. "Do not move too quickly," he said in his deep rumbling voice. "You have been badly injured." Hyen's voice came out as barely a whisper. "The cubs? Dane, Kara, Misu, they live?" Taram said quickly. "Because of you, they live. They have been waiting outside your ship since the day you saved them." Tears formed in Hyen's eyes. "Good," she managed. "That is good." Taram knelt beside the chamber, making himself smaller, less intimidating. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion he did not try to hide. "I am Taram. I am the chieftain who refused to believe you. I am the one who called you cursed and dangerous. I am the fool who almost let children die because of pride." He lowered his head, a gesture of deepest respect among his people. "I ask your forgiveness, though I do not deserve it." Hyen reached out with a shaking hand and touched his bowed head gently. "There is nothing to forgive," she said softly. "You feared what you did not understand, but you allowed me to land when I needed help. That took courage too. You shielded our young," Taram said, his voice breaking. "You burned so they might live. There is no greater honor among our people." Outside, word spread quickly that the human had woken. The cubs burst into the ship, their parents unable to hold them back. Dane, Kara, and Misu rushed to the medical chamber, their young faces bright with joy and relief. "You are alive," Misu cried. "We thought you would die." Hyen smiled at them, despite the pain it cost her. "I am hard to kill," she said. "Are you all feeling well? No injuries?" 3 weeks had passed since Hien woke in the medical chamber. She sat now in the warm morning sun outside her ship, surrounded by young Vexra cubs who listened with rapt attention as she told them stories of distant worlds. Her skin still bore the faint marks of radiation burns, patterns like strange tattoos that the Vexra had begun to see as symbols of honor. Rather than injury, Dane raised his hand eagerly. "Tell us again about the ice world where water falls from the sky as frozen crystals." Hyen smiled. She had told this story 3 times already, but the cubs never seemed to tire of it. On a planet called Frostheim, The atmosphere is so cold that water vapor freezes instantly. When winter comes, entire cities are buried under mountains of snow. The people there live underground and have never seen rain. How do they drink? Kara asked, her eyes wide. They melt the snow, and they have learned to build beautiful things from ice. Sculptures that tower higher than the tallest trees, castles made of frozen water that glow in their sun's light. Misu leaned forward. Will we see such places one day? Perhaps, Hyan said gently. If you study hard and learn well, there are many worlds waiting for you to explore. Rena sat slightly apart from the younger cubs, helping Hyan with translations when the cubs used words too advanced for Hyan's still developing grasp of Vexra language. She had become Hyan's constant companion over the past weeks, soaking up knowledge about other species, other cultures, other ways of seeing the universe. The council wants to speak with you today, Rena said quietly during a break in the lesson. Father says it is important. Hyan nodded. She had been expecting this. Her ship was fully repaired now. She could leave any time. But something had changed in her during those weeks of recovery. When she thought about departing, about leaving Bloodstone Ridge behind, her heart ached in a way she had not anticipated. That afternoon she stood before the clan council in their great hall. The same elders who had grudgingly granted her emergency sanctuary now looked at her, with respect and something close to affection. Taram sat at the center, his massive frame somehow seeming less intimidating than before. Hyan, Taram began, his voice formal but warm. We have gathered to offer you something that has never been offered to an outsider, and certainly never to a human. We wish to make you an honorary member of Bloodstone Clan. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled Vexra. Hyan felt tears pricking her eyes. I am honored, she said, her voice catching slightly. More than I can express. Goran stood, holding a pendant carved from dark stone. This is a clan marker. It signifies that you are one of us, that our home is your home, that our young are under your protection, as ours are under yours. He smiled, his aged face creasing. Though you have already proven that last part quite thoroughly. The hall erupted in sounds of approval, deep rumbling laughs and the clicking of claws against stone. Goran placed the pendant around Hyan's neck. It was heavy, warm from his hands, and felt more precious than gold. There is more, Taram said, standing. We hope you will not leave us. We wish you to stay here as our liaison to your people. We wish you to teach our young ones about the wider galaxy. We wish to learn from you how to predict dangers, how to read the data we have ignored for so long. Stay? Hyan repeated, hardly daring to believe. Yes, Rena said eagerly, stepping forward. Stay and teach us. Show us how to be explorers like you. Help us understand the stars. Han looked around the hall at the faces watching her hopefully. She thought about her research, about the other worlds waiting to be studied. Then she thought about 3 cubs who called her Soft Shield and followed her everywhere. She thought about Rena's hungry mind, always asking questions, always wanting to learn more. She thought about Taram, who had overcome such deep prejudice to offer her friendship. I will stay, she said, for as long as you will have me. The celebration that followed lasted 3 days. News of Hyan's decision spread beyond Bloodstone Ridge to other Vexra settlements. Messengers arrived on swift mounts, bringing questions, bringing requests. Could the human visit their clans? Could she teach their young ones too? Could she help them upgrade their equipment? On the 5th day after the council meeting, another human ship appeared in orbit. Hyan's emergency beacon had finally been answered. She stood in the communication center with Taram as a face appeared on the screen. A human woman with graying hair and tired eyes. This is Captain Wei of the diplomatic vessel Unity. We received your distress signal 3 weeks ago, but were delayed by engine trouble. Are you safe? Do you require extraction? I am safe, Hyan said, smiling. Better than safe. Captain, I need to make a full report. First contact protocols have been successfully completed with the Vexra. They are requesting formal diplomatic relations with humanity. Captain Wei's eyes widened. The Vexra? but our records indicate they are hostile to human contact. That there is a cultural prohibition. The records were based on misunderstanding, Hyun interrupted gently. I will send you a full report, but the short version is this. They were afraid of us because they did not understand us. They thought we brought disaster. Now they know the truth. We do not bring disaster. We try to prevent it. She paused, looking at Taram, who nodded encouragingly. Captain, the Vexra are requesting that human ambassadors be assigned to their major settlements. They want to learn from us. They want to share their knowledge with us. And they are willing to open diplomatic relations with the wider galactic community, with humans as their guides. There was a long silence on the other end. Finally, Captain Wei spoke, her voice filled with wonder. Dr. Hyun, do you understand what you have accomplished? The Vexra are one of the most isolationist species in this sector. This is unprecedented. I understand, Hyun said quietly. But I did not accomplish it alone. The Vexra themselves chose to change. I simply gave them a reason to do so. Over the following weeks, more human ships arrived. Diplomats, scientists, cultural specialists. Each one was greeted not with hostility but with cautious welcome. The Vexra were still learning to trust, still overcoming generations of fear. But they were trying. Hyun became a bridge between two species, translating not just words but intentions, explaining customs, smoothing over misunderstandings. She watched with pride as young Vexra warriors began learning human languages. As human engineers worked alongside Vexra craftsmen to upgrade the settlement's technology, 6 months after the burning sky, Hyun stood before her first official class in a newly constructed learning center. 20 young Vexra sat in curved rows, their amber eyes bright with curiosity. Dane, Kara, and Misu sat in the front, as always. Rena assisted her, helping to prepare lessons and translate complex concepts. Today, Hyun began, we will learn about stellar phenomena, how to read the signs that tell us when a star is becoming unstable, how to predict solar flares and protect ourselves from them. She pulled up a holographic display of their own sun, showing its layers and magnetic fields. The cubs leaned forward, fascinated. But first, she said, I want to tell you why this knowledge matters. Not just to keep you safe, though that is important, but because understanding the stars is the first step to traveling among them. And there is a wide, beautiful galaxy waiting for those brave enough to explore it. Outside the learning center, Taram stood with Captain Wei, watching through a window as Hyun taught her class. She's a gift to our people, Taram said quietly. We do not deserve her after how we treated her. She does not see it that way, Captain Wei replied. She believes every species deserves understanding and compassion. That is why she became a xenobiologist. Taram was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Our legends spoke of humans as the soft deaths, bringers of misfortune. We were so wrong. We should have called you the soft shields. Those who stand between others and harm. Captain Wei smiled. I like that better. Inside the classroom, Hyun finished her lesson. Next time, we will discuss different types of stars and how to recognize them. For now, does anyone have questions? Every hand in the room shot up. Hyun laughed, the sound warm and happy, and began calling on students one by one. That evening she sat on a hill overlooking the settlement, watching the sun set in brilliant orange and gold. No green, no crimson. Just peaceful, beautiful colors. Rena climbed the hill to join her, sitting down beside her with comfortable familiarity. Do you miss your home world? Rena asked. Hyun considered the question carefully. Sometimes. But home is not just a place. It is where you are needed, where you are wanted, where you can make a difference. Then this is your home now? Yes, Hyun said, smiling. This is my home now. Below them, the settlement glowed with warm lights. Young cubs played in the streets under the watchful eyes of parents. Human and Vexra worked side by side on new construction projects. The communications array was being upgraded to connect with other settlements, spreading knowledge, spreading hope. What do you think they will call you in the stories? Rena asked. 100 years from now, when cubs learn about what happened here. Hyun thought about the old legends, about the soft deaths and the fear that had poisoned relations for generations. She thought about 3 cubs huddled under a shield dome, about burning to save lives that were not her own. "I hope they call me a friend," she said simply. "That is all I ever wanted to be."